Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dave Chelly. I am a Potato Council board member and managing director of the McCain Group company, one of your sponsors today, and the largest processors of frozen French fries globally. Today's speakers are going to talk about the future, costs and scenarios. Our first speaker is David Wilkinson, the Senior Director, European Agriculture for PepsiCo Europe, who will talk on what will potatoes cost in 2020. Thank you, David.
Well, good morning, everybody. Just by a very brief way of introduction, I guess I hope not too many people are sort of sitting in the audience saying, well, what the hell is somebody from PepsiCo going to talk about potatoes? Well, PepsiCo clearly is obviously not just the eponymous drink. We actually are the marketer of some of the leading snacks in Europe and the globe. And obviously, you know, our link to potatoes really is around Lay's, it's around Walker's, it's around Simba in South Africa, sort of brand-leading potato chips in those markets. I think when I was first talking about, when I was being briefed by the World Potato Council about this title of the presentation, I was on a telephone call and the lady said, so the title of your presentation is going to be, what will potato cost in 2020? And my immediate response was, too much. But you know, come on, you know, you've got to give me that. I'm a procurement guy at heart, you know. I'm not going to give away too many secrets here. But you know what? Looking at the numbers, I'm just wondering whether I might be sort of half right. So if I look at some of the numbers that the UK Potato Council provided in one of their recent documents, and I cast my mind back to you know, crop 2006. In the 5 years since 2006, I'm told you know, the actual cost of production has gone up by something like 42% in those 5 years. At the same time, in the UK, consumer price index has gone up 17%, and the average UK food index has gone up 31%. Either way you look at it, it's clear that input costs are outstripping what the consumer is prepared to pay for our products. And this clearly, for me at least, it sort of outlines the case of some sort of transformational productivity in the supply chain. It's not sustainable to have costs going up to that degree versus what consumer prices are doing at the same time. And I really do think that, you know, around this room and in the sector, in the industry, we need to really understand that this gap of the costs really has to be bridged by doing some transformational things in the supply chain, and we have to do it together to ensure that we keep potato prices competitive. So taking a quick look at my industry, potato chips, I'm sure some of you are asking, well, you know, does the potato price of sorry? Okay, so coming back to my industry, potato chips, I'm sure some of you in the room are saying, well, you know, does the price of potatoes really affect Lay's or Walker's or what the consumer does in the supermarket? Well, I think the answer is yes. So we've got some pretty clever people in PepsiCo, and they created this chart for me, which effectively shows, if you like, the demand elasticity across Europe of potato chips versus macro snacks category. So your cookies, your muffins, some chocolate bars, what have you. So what they've done there, and let's sort of clear the chart a little bit, is they've plotted, you know, the amount of sales of crisps, kgs per person per year, against what the average cost for those crisps are versus the average cost for chocolate, muffins, cakes, as I said. And it actually shows, you know, a pretty good linear fit. So, you know, look at the bottom right of the chart. You see that UK and Netherlands, you know, these guys, they love their crisps. But actually, crisps are pretty cheap versus the average macro snack category. You look at Bulgaria and Romania, it's a tougher challenge for us. So, you know, the cost of potatoes, the cost of production in these markets versus alternatives means that we sell much less per person. And what I will have to say is, if we left these costs unchecked, the potato cost would be 11% more than food as a whole, 11% more than the average macro snack category. We'll sell less. It's as simple as that. If we don't find ways of offsetting these increases, we will all do less well. So when I look at everybody in this room, I think we all have a part to play in sort of squaring this circle, if you like. It's amazing how many people I talk to believe they can't do anything. Well, doing nothing just isn't an option. We all have to address this because it will affect us all one way or the other. We have to do this together. It's one of these things we're all going to have to sort of work on the whole trust piece, because we are in it together. We are interlinked. There's things that a responsible buyer can do. There are things that a responsible growers can do as well. And we have to bring these two people together. We've all got something to learn. Again, anecdotally, when I go and talk to people in the fields, and this is not just the UK, this is all around Europe, I am amazed when people say, oh yeah, we're already doing that. Yeah, we're doing that. We're doing that. We're doing that. We're doing that. Everybody does bits, but very, very, very few people do everything. And it's not a case of, you're right, you're wrong, I'm right, you're not. It's a case of we've all got something to learn here. We all know we can do things better. And I hope that, what we're trying to do with our Pepsi growers, and I hope there are other buyers in the sector doing the same thing, trying to encourage all of our growers to do better. We should also take the opportunity to look around us. So again, I've got a couple of stories here. I was fortunate enough to be in Israel 2 years ago, and I was amazed how they look after water, and some of the work that they're doing in irrigating with slightly saline water, how they apply just minimal amounts of water and get a really viable crop. And we've started to sort of take that understanding and apply those to places where you might not naturally think there was such a need to take on board those agricultural principles, those agricultural practices. So that's showing that from Pepsi we can learn what goes on in other countries, but we can also learn what goes on in other crops. We can learn and see what's going on, what other growers are doing, and we can, we can sometimes say, we can shamelessly steal that. Nobody's going to be offended. We're all doing the right things, but we can learn from different people. And a lot of people in this room don't know me. Some do, and I'm not. I'm quite a conservative person, so I certainly would not say that I'm reckless. And I'm not saying to all of our farmers that they need to be reckless. They should just throw out everything that they've learned in the last 30 years and go and do something new. That's not what I'm about at all. But I do think we need to get the balance right and be prepared to try something a little bit different, and then share those results with ourselves to say, well, did it work? Did it not work? Could we do more? Could we do less? Should we have done that? Should we not have done that? Is that there's nothing very nice about asking and answering our own questions. I think the opportunity that we have is that we can ask our questions, and let's just go and see what happens in the real world. And actually, my experience is typically we can be quite surprised and delighted with some of the results, and they surprise what perhaps would have been our initial response. And I really don't want to sound all motherhood and apple pie about this. I'm as hard-hearted a businessman as anybody in this room, but my honest experience is that if we're prepared to suspend judgment and try and do things differently, we'll be delighted by the results. And I would say of all of the things that we've tried to do, yeah, we've been disappointed in a couple of things, but 8 out of 10, we've been really pleasantly surprised, and we've seen the need to go and do a little bit more refined research, a little bit more work to try and do things a little bit better the next season. I've got a little bit of a quiz here, because it's 10 minutes in. I don't want anybody sort of dropping off or having a little bit of lull in their attention. Anybody guess where that field is? Oh. Norfolk? No. Yeah, think a little bit more. Think a little bit more east. Not that far east. So it's in Poland, but that's not, you know, it's not photoshopped. It's a picture that we took from the crops last season. But what, you know, the purpose of this is, I think, together we can do great things. And you know, what this picture illustrates is some of the work that we've been doing on better potato varieties. So I've been in this role maybe 4 years now. I was so fortunate to come on the back of people who 10 years ago were thinking about new potato varieties are absolutely at the heart of transforming potato growing and the consumer experience of crisps and potatoes. And we're starting to see the fruits of that labour coming through. And these better potato varieties, you know, we're finding that they've got better solids, better yields from the fields, better quality. All of these things clearly add to the commercial agenda. Clearly these will be great enablers to be some significant offsets against the cost of fertiliser, the cost of fuel. They're also better from a sustainability perspective. Many of these varieties need less water. And we trialled this in places around Europe, and we can prove this. Many of these varieties need up to 50% less nitrogen. So this has got to be a good thing of doing things better. And by 2017, as I said, really reaping the benefits of the work that's been done in the last 10 years, 80% of our crisps will be made from new potato varieties. And better potato varieties, and they're not just better for you, because the acid test is our consumer prefers them as well. So they say, yeah, they look better. They're more yellow. They've got less defects. They're crispier, better texture. So it's really, you know, again, working together, we can do tremendous things. What we're also doing is figuring out the better way of growing potatoes. Now, I tell you, again, some of you know me, some of you don't, but the ones who know me are pretty accurate that I don't know much about growing potatoes. But I tell you one thing, we work with people who do know an awful lot about growing potatoes. And we're trying to take that understanding one level further. So we've got almost 10% of the UK landmass of our potatoes under a fairly strict, what we call it I-crop, but it really is a precision agronomy regime. So we're looking as to how how was the water applied? Was it uniform? Was it at the right time? Was it required? Because we've got moisture probes in the fields that say actually that 50 centimetres down from the top of the soil, there's plenty of water there, and the potatoes were just fine. You didn't need to apply that water. We're learning how to grow crops better. We're taking learnings from our partners at Cambridge University. We're working with our growers, and I have to say, and I joke and I can be a little bit anecdotal about some of my experiences, but the way the Pepsi growers, in the midst of all of the other challenges that face them on a day-to-day basis, the response of us actually trying to do this has been overwhelmingly positive, and I'm so proud of them. It's just a fantastic response from the farmers and the growers themselves. But again, we're learning to grow potatoes even better than we did 5 years ago. And we're rolling that out across Europe. So last year we started in Holland. We'll do it again in Holland this year. We did some in Spain last year. We'll do it again in Spain this year. We're moving to Poland this year, and we're moving to Turkey this year as well to really try to maximize the yield. But it's not just about growing crops better. We're also doing some different trials. And again, we don't know the answers to some of the trials. And I'm sure there's very clever people in this room who will say, oh, that's not going to work. Well, it might not work, but we're going to give it a go. So last year, we did 300 hectares of drip irrigation trials across the UK and Turkey. Now, Adam was with me when we met with the drip irrigation supplier 18 months ago. And we said, we want to do a trial. And this guy must have had so many people saying, we want to do a trial of drip irrigation in the UK. And he was kind of interested. He said, yeah, okay, we can do a trial. What were you thinking of? And we said 120 hectares. He nearly fell off his chair. 120 hectares of potatoes under drip irrigation. He'd never heard anything like it in the UK. And we did it. And I'm not, I can't remember the numbers, but it worked. we got more yield, almost 40% less water was applied versus head-to-head crops in the same fields. The disease loading was significantly better than traditionally irrigated crops. It really worked, and we've been, and again, we must sort of say, some of our peers, ADAS, all the Cambridge guys really helped us in understanding what we should be doing and how we should be irrigating those crops. And actually, the team tells me we didn't apply the water in the best way. We could have done so much better. So just imagine, now we sort of know how we can apply the water, and we sort of know how we can manage this drip irrigation. I can't wait to see what the results are going to be this year. So drip irrigation is one of these areas. The other one this year, we're going to really focus on carbon. Now, some of you will know that obviously we've launched in the UK our target to reduce our carbon and water footprint by 50% in 5 years. So that's our 50 in 5 program. And when we've really investigated and tried to understand what the carbon footprint of growing is, we know that almost 50% of it is down to nitrogen in the fertilizer. Be it production, be it the nitrification in the atmosphere, you name it, it's pretty, it's a pretty big influencer to the footprint. So this year, we're trying different types of fertilizer, blends of organic material and non-organic material, different ways of applying it, not sort of putting it all across all of the, sort of broadcast application, but into the ridge or into the soil itself. We're trying to do different things to reduce our carbon footprint, but it always makes good business sense as well. It's stuff that you've got to feel good about doing this. If you've got the opportunity to put 50% less fertilizer on your fields, and I believe we have, you've got to feel good from that. Yes, it's going to save me money, but the stewardship and the husbandry that as farmers that you're applying on that land, you must feel good about that. I would. If I was lucky enough to be a farmer, that would be absolutely, that would get me out of bed every morning trying to do that. And again, whilst we've been leveraging our peers, ADAS, the University of Aberdeen on the carbon footprinting tools, fundamentally, it's our growers and working with our growers that have made it happen. It's, I can't emphasize this enough. This is not office people sitting on an Excel spreadsheet saying, oh yes, you can grow 5% more yield by applying 20% less fertilizer because it says so in cell number G26. This is people in the fields verifying this. And I hope I try to get over to you that this is, what we're trying to do here is working together to actually make this stuff happen in the fields. It's not on spreadsheets. So, back to the question. You know what? I don't know what potatoes will cost in 2020. But what I do know is that we will be faced with commodity headwinds in the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years. And what I also know is that by working together, I passionately believe that we can make a real difference in actually offsetting a lot of these inflationary costs. And let's not forget, more yield, better quality, less store, more factory waste. That's great for everybody. And for me, that really is, it's like you're breathing oxygen into the whole of the commercial equation. It's really true sustainable productivity. It's what we should all be wanting for and being delighted that this opportunity is there. And I truly, truly believe it is there. But you know what? It's also the right thing to do. When we talk with our consumers, the consumers care about agriculture. They care about farmers. They care about managing the land in the most sustainable way. And I think, not only can we offset a lot of these cost inflation, we can actually all feel really proud of how we take farming forward. And I really believe this will be a massive success story as we roll this out across Europe. And I hope my peers in other potato industries are doing the same sort of stuff. It makes me feel proud. I'm sure it makes all of our farmers feel proud. And you know what? At the end of the day, it'll give our consumers something to smile about when they're opening up their packet of Walkers or pack of Lays and really enjoying a packet of crisps. They can be really sure that as a company and as an agricultural supply chain, we're doing everything to minimize our carbon footprint, our sustainability footprint. Everything is good about what they're eating and what they're enjoying. So that's all I had to say. I hope I've given you a flavor of what we're trying to do as PepsiCo, what I hope other companies are trying to do, and I know as farmers you're doing a heck of a lot of good work as well, and I can only sort of showcase a small proportion of that. And I think we can all be very proud. There's a big journey to go, but I think there's a real opportunity here. So thank you very much.
Thank you.